Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Credit Chat. I'm Rod Griffin, Senior Director of Education and Advocacy for Experian. I'm here to answer your questions about credit reporting and credit scoring and fraud and ID theft, all of those things that we may be able to help you with and help answer your questions about so that you can be more successful financially and take control of that credit history and get the credit you need when you need it. So feel free to ask any questions you have. Ginger Key Lime, thanks for joining. Muhammad 96445471, thanks for being here and being part of the chat. The whole idea is that I'm here to have a dialogue with you and a conversation for you to ask questions. If you have a question, I know others do as well, and we can share more information with people and exactly what you need to know about. New York Zeppelin, good to see you again. Thanks for joining. And that's the whole goal, is to help you get the information you need to make better decisions, to understand how credit reporting and scoring work. It shouldn't be a mystery. I talk to too many people who say that credit reports and credit scores are this hard thing to understand and use. We don't want that to be the case. We want you to understand exactly how credit reporting works, understand how to make it a financial tool rather than feel like it's a mystery or a barrier. So, Wounded Butterfly, can the collection agency place the account on your report anytime they want? Once they own that collection account, they could report it. Now, the responsibility under the law for that collection agency is to report the original delinquency date from the original account. That's crucial. So they can't change that. The collection account will be deleted 7 years from the original delinquency date of the original debt. So with the original creditor, a collection account's treated as a continuation of the original debt. That's important because it means that that collection account, they can put it on within that 7-year period, but it's going to come off at the same time. They cannot change that debt. So if the account is sold to collections, the collection account usually won't stay 7 years because the original debt will have become delinquent usually at least 6 months prior, maybe a little less than that, before the original lender charges it off as a loss and then transfers it to collection. And then the collection agency would have that account and could then report it. So if they report it and it's 6 years past the original delinquency date, it could come on the report, but that original delinquency date would mean it would be deleted within a year. So it will stay 7 years from that original delinquency date. Collection agencies cannot change that date. That's the important thing to understand. So it will stay 7 years from that original delinquency date. Finally did the boost, found utility bills on time, and it raised my score by 6 points. Jetty, 77777, I think I got the right number. So good to hear. Thanks for letting us know. I'm glad to see you saw an increase. Keep doing the same things, and if you're paying those cell phone bills on time and the other bills, I think you'll see Experian Boost continue to help over time. We think that's going to be the case because you continue to build that positive history. So good to hear. Thanks for the feedback. And congratulations. Thinking too much. I know how that feels sometimes. Saints Girls 878, thanks for joining. You placed a whole year after purchasing. Now it looks like it's new when it's not. So yeah, so it's the 7-year, that delinquency date that's going to be important. You should also see the original account still in the history, and it should, in most cases anyway, will say sold to or transferred to. And then with the collection account, you would see purchased from, acquired from, or transferred from. So you can trace that debt and its history from one owner to the next. So you would still see that full history. Add BOSD, thanks for joining. Wounded Butterfly, I heard they just sell our info to creditors when you use Boost. No, I'm not sure what exactly you're saying there, but when you enroll in Boost, you're enrolling in our monitoring services. You may get offers for matching to credit accounts as your scores become better that are based on what you tell us you're looking for. You can say no or just delete them. Or if you find an account that's right for you, then you can take advantage of that. So always use that little word, no, and you can take advantage of those opportunities. The whole idea is that with Boost, it will help improve your scores so that you can begin to qualify for better rates, better terms, and be able to get the credit you need and the kind of credit you need when you want it. As part of that, you may get offers from us in the future or information in the future about cards you would qualify for, accounts. You can always say no. And honestly, I do too, and sometimes I take advantage of them. So because I'm enrolled in the same service. Ms. ED4, great to see you. Always happy to have you join us. And junk mail and soft inquiries I missed part of that question. Are the collection laws different from state to state? They can be, yes. So there is, and it was actually a news story today about something called, if I remember, I'll forget the term now, but time barred debt. So there are the laws that govern collections are different than the laws that govern credit reporting, and those are sometimes confused. The Fair Credit Reporting Act governs the credit reporting industry, and there are state laws as well that govern what we do, and it's about about reporting information, what the credit reporting companies like Experian must do in terms of the information we collect and maintain, how we share that information with you or with others. How the dispute process needs to be implemented so you can contact with us and dispute information, as well as how businesses that report information to us, what their responsibilities are. So, accuracy, consistency, responding to disputes, all of those kinds of things. On the collection side, their Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, the FDCPA, regulates the collection agencies and collection efforts. And it can specify how long a collection agency can attempt to collect that debt and still sue potentially. And it may, the state laws differ as well, but they're time barred debt, meaning they can no longer sue you to collect that debt, for example. And from a credit reporting standpoint, the FCRA specifies how long information will remain in a report for an account. So it's possible, depending on state law and federal law, that an account that a collection agency may still be able to attempt to collect on wouldn't be in your credit report anymore, and they can't put it back. So there are two different things at play. But there's the time barred debt issue is bothersome to collection agencies for obvious reasons. But they do specify how long a collection agency can attempt to collect and what they can do in order to attempt to collect. So it is limited. And they differ from state to state. Brian, Mark, Maggie, thanks for joining. And I'm still missing Jetty, I'm missing the first part of your question, I think. And junk mail and soft inquiries. What was not junk mail that you get? I always say that we have a marketing division that used to send, you'd be an actual mailing house. We had a post office in our facility, and we actually produced like the mailing offers you would get, the pre-approved offers or the mailing in the mail, and we don't really do that anymore. It's that business has changed, so we don't do junk mail, but we want it to be mail that's targeted, meaning it was something you would be interested in, so that it's not junk. It's something you can consider. It might increase your opportunity as a consumer, and be something you might want to buy, so that it's not just stuff in the mail. That's the goal. Nora the Beautiful, hello. Thanks for being part of the chat today. Danny Boy 1503, thanks for being here. Earn Your Earn, thanks for being part of the chat today. If you're just joining, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. I try to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Wednesday, you can find me and the rest of the Experian crew on Twitter, along with a lot of our colleagues and experts in personal finance. Next week, we're going to talk about common questions about credit on Wednesdays. 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern on Twitter. Now, you can learn more about this Periscope and about our Twitter chats, our credit chat at ex.pn/creditchat. But feel free to ask any questions you have. The whole goal is to answer the questions you need to have answers for. So, Northern Buell, how's USA? Is it safe? Has coronavirus reached here? Well, for a conversation about credit, but I'll tell you, there was news today. Yes, it has reached the States. There was reportedly the first person to be infected through community exposure, as opposed to coming off of an airplane or having been exposed outside the country. So it's here. Don't know what that means. That's a different kind of chat. I'm a credit guy, so I don't know much about the communicable diseases. But we're all watching it and all worried about and thinking about all the people who are affected around the globe by it, what it means to them and their families and our economy. Whoops, I turned myself around again. Jay Romeo, thanks for joining. Saints Girl 878, how can creditors harass kids on their phone lines? Why can't they be reported? they cuss your child, that's you can report them to the Federal Trade Commission, and I would recommend you do that. So you go to ftc.gov. You can learn how to report violations of there's a do not call list that doesn't always affect or prohibit calls, so that's something to be aware of. But you can certainly report it to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and they may be able to assist. Not sure why they're calling your child's phone. There is the federal do not call list that you can join at no cost to reduce marketing calls and to reduce those sorts of calls. Collectors may be exempt. So if it's a collector and they're going to your child, I'm not sure why. If it's a possibility, I'm not saying this is the case, but if it's your child's phone, but the adult is paying the bill, it's in the adult's name, they may not know it's a child. So I don't know what's happening there. Danny Boy 1503, best way to improve credit after bankruptcy. Patience and time are going to be crucial. I mean, that's just kind of a reality. But a couple of things you can do. If you've had to declare bankruptcy, if you can keep an account open, particularly like a small credit card with a small credit limit, and then make a small purchase periodically, once a month, every couple of months, pay that balance in full. So just, $20 or $30, doesn't have to be very much, just so there's activity in the account. And that will result in that account having a positive history being reported that will backfill as the negative information from the accounts included in bankruptcy and the bankruptcy itself get older and eventually fall off the report. And so if you have an account or maybe two that you're making small purchases on, paying them, making sure you're showing that paid in time, or paid on time every time, eventually that positive information will offset the negative. You're going to help you recover a bit more quickly. Another thing you might consider, we talked about Experian Boost a little bit. If you go to Experian.com/boost, you can give us permission to add your cell phone payments, your positive cell phone payments, not the negative, but the positive cell phone payments, positive utility payments to your credit history to help boost your credit scores as well. We found that in the past, cell phone providers, utility providers didn't and still don't typically report the positive information. If you don't pay, the collection account could show up or negative information. Experian Boost gives you the ability and the control to add the positive information to show that you would otherwise be a good risk. So again, it's adding that positive information to the report over time, and that will help offset the negative information. The other thing I don't know if I mentioned about Boost is it's completely in your control. It's permission-based, so you can change your mind and say, don't want it anymore, and we'll stop reporting it. So another tool that's available. Another thing you might be able to do if you're renting is talk to your landlord or your complex management, apartment complex management company. They may be able to report, or I should say may be willing to report, because they can report your positive rent payments to Experian. And if you search Experian rent reporting, you can find out how to have them do that. But you can work with them. They may be able to do that. We found that when you have positive rent payments reported, it almost 100% of the time helps improve your credit scores, helps you move into tier. So it's a great tool to help rehabilitate your history if you've had issues like bankruptcy that you have to recover from. So several things you can do. We talked about relationships and money. Yes, we did. Christina, good to see you. Christina works for me in California. So watch out for that. We're talking about coronavirus. That's where the news story said the person was exposed, I think, in Sacramento. So it's scary. But good advice, and we had a great conversation yesterday about relationships and money and how you talk to your partner about money. I'll say it's always a fun thing to do. It can be challenging, but if you work at it and you make it sort of a daily conversation like my wife and I do, we talk about money all the time, just sort of as a natural part of our conversation, so we don't have to have that big end of the month money talk where one or the other of us is upset. So we know what's going on, and we're open and honest and completely transparent about how we manage money and what we do. And it can be as simple as like tonight, we have a friend who's retiring. So it's the question is, do we eat out last night, or do we eat in or stay in because we're going out tomorrow? What's the budget look like? What are our plans? And it's like, yeah, let's stay in tonight. We'll cook in tonight, and because we're going to go out tomorrow. It's still a money conversation. Let's save for that because we're budgeting and have plans to do something else. And then often I'll say, I'd like to buy something. And she'll say, do you really need that? So she's my sort of conscience too. So that helps. You learn to listen to that little voice in my head, which usually sounds just like my wife. And her number's fairly new. So yeah, that I don't know. I mean, and it's also contact your cell phone company. They may be able to help as well. And you can use the tools in your cell phone to block the caller. So you might give that a try. That might help as well. I turned myself around. I'm back though. As I scroll, I hit the screen too many times. She got her number 6 months ago, and they are aware she's the person they asked for. We don't know how old she is, but if she's an adult, that they may be able to do that. Don't know who they are. So a lot of details, but talk to cell phone company, talk to, maybe report it to the FTC. And I don't know if I can give much more help than that without knowing more about exactly what's happening. Ronaldo Costa, thanks for joining. Uncle Smiles, thanks for joining, being here. Calendar 0638, thanks for being here as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Senior Director, Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. Try to answer your questions. That's why I'm here. Try to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, to help you understand what you need to know and what you're working on about your credit reports and credit scores. My husband always says, yes, you deserve that. Well, I usually say yes to, almost always say yes to my wife. My wife is more sensible than me in a lot of cases when I want stuff. So, because I want things I really don't need, and she rarely asks for things or wants things that she doesn't need. So, it's usually when she comes to me, I'm like, okay, that's fine. With me, it's like, do you really need that? So, and she's almost always right. I won't say right 100% of the time, but about 99.9% of the time. I had $250 medical collections that are paid for deletement, 2 months, no increase in score. Well, Dr. AZ, first thing I would say is, if you're negotiating with a lender, you certainly have a right to do that. Make sure you get it in writing. And if they didn't delete it, and my perspective is that if our responsibility is to accurately reflect the history of that account in accordance with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So what it says is if an account is paid or collections is paid, it should update to show that the account is paid. If it's no longer on the report, part of the issue is a credit score isn't part of a report. You would need to have a new score calculated. So if a new score hasn't been calculated, you wouldn't see a new one. You need to get a fresh report that doesn't include that, have a score calculated. You may see a change, and there may be other issues in the report. So one change doesn't necessarily result in an increase if there are other issues as well. So if you have other issues with, and like I said, I'm just possibilities. I'm not saying this is your situation, but if you have a credit history and you have one account that's delinquent, meaning you have late payments, and it's removed, but you have other accounts that are as well or in collections, just that one account may not be enough to result in a change. Maybe and because other things are changing, the score still might not change. It's all about time. It's about the mix of information in your credit history, the length of that history, all of the other factors. To know what you really need to do to improve your score, get the risk factors that go with that score, and focus on those factors. They'll tell you exactly what you need to do to make your scores better. I've talked to people who said, I got a new card, so my utilization rate should be lower. But they opened a new account. Part of the issue is, and utilization wasn't the issue. It's late payment, something like that. So make sure you're focusing on the issues that are affecting your specific credit history. There are 220 million people with different credit histories, lots of different scores. So the other issue that might come up is you're looking at a different number. I don't know. If you got your scores from two different places, you may not be comparing apples and apples. So make sure you get them from the same place, from the same source, and it's the same scoring model, same formula, to make sure it's exactly the same numbers to compare as well. Because I've talked to people who've said, I got my score from one place, I made some changes, I went to another place and my score was lower. Well, it's different scale, different score. If they went back to the same place, they found out the score went up. So make sure you're looking at the same scores too, and get them consistently from the same place. So, because that can make a big difference. So several things that might have happened, but you have to have a current report being used, to calculate that score. That's kind of the first issue. Somewhere around 709, was hoping to get a boost. And the other issue is things like, if your balances on your credit cards are too high, if you're paying somebody, I will say this about credit repair and illegitimate credit repair. There are good credit repair companies out there, but your story is not uncommon. You've paid I don't know how many, probably hundreds of dollars to negotiate if you paid for that service. And what you find is that so $250 medical collections you paid for late. Don't know how much you paid. If you had $300, you paid them off. Something else to know about medical collections is that once paid, a medical collection no longer affects credit scores with the newest scores, and its impact is greatly diminished. So I talk to people who work with these so-called credit repair companies that are not legitimate. Again, there are some good ones out there, but they'll pay them potentially hundreds of dollars and nothing happens except you get yourself separated from your hard-earned money. If you're better to, and usually what I hear from people about credit cards, you're better to pay down those debts using that money than try to pay somebody to remove accurate information, because you'll find your scores improve, because that's what's really affecting the score. It's also longer lasting. There is no quick fix. And I think that's the problem. When you start looking for a quick fix, you'll find out you're working on the wrong things. With a medical collection, if you paid medical collection, no longer is included in score calculations. Once it's updated, it's paid in a credit report. So the newest scores, FICO 8, FICO 9, Vantage Score 3.0 and 4.0, and those are the most commonly used scores by lenders today. Paying off those medical collections might have been less expensive and probably would have resulted in the same or better improvement, just so you're aware. So even though they were still there. Paid down card balances less than 5%. That's how I got to 709, but no increase after you paid collections. Yeah, so, and pay depends on the scoring system used. It also takes some time because you're looking at collections are being paid and they need to be updated to paid. That usually takes a month to 2 months, so 30 to 45 days in most cases to allow for that information to be updated. And then a new score would need to be calculated using the fresh information, the changed information. And that's assuming everything else in your credit report stayed the same. And so if you've taken on more debt, if other things have changed, you've closed accounts, opened accounts, you're creating this constant churn of change, need to be stable for a while too. So patience is kind of the key. Be patient. Darn, give me that medical score info. So Prixie 23, the thing to know about medical collections today is that scoring systems have changed. The most common scores, FICO 8, FICO 9, Vantage Score 2.0 and 3.0, no longer include paid medical collections in the calculation. So once you pay a medical collection off, it's reported to Experian and the other bureaus as paid. It won't affect your scores anymore. It would still show in the credit report, but show paid. So you have about $4,000 of medical bills and collections. If I pay them in full, will my credit go up? Very likely, yes, in the long term, because a paid collection is always better than an unpaid collection, and will help your scores improve faster, if not right away. That's always important. You can pay down your debts, pay off any collections, reduce your credit card debts. Those are kind of the things that apply to everybody. But before you take any action, I always encourage people, get a score, get your report, get the risk factors that go with that score, because they're going to tell you exactly what you need to focus on in your credit report to improve your scores. And there's very little universal advice. When I hear people say, everybody should do this, and it's something very specific, beyond pay your bills on time and keep your balances on your credit cards low, my experience is they don't really understand how scores work, because everybody's a bit different. With 220 million credit reports and individuals' credit reports, and potentially as many as 300 factors that go into some scores, it's different for everyone. Beyond you have to pay your bills on time, keep your balances low. Those are universal. From that, it could be the mix of credit you have. It could be how long you've used credit. It could be your recent credit behavior. Have you become late recently? Have you paid something off? Have you opened new accounts? So there are lots and lots of factors that are looked at that, depending on your particular history, could be more or less important. So get those risk factors, know exactly what they say, and use that to set a plan to improve your credit history over time, because time is, in the end, the most important factor in scores. They want to know, and scores are looking at not only where you are today, but where you were in the past and how long you've been in a different place. So are you paying your bills on time? Not just did you do it today, but have you done it over time? Because that shows a consistent behavior, and that's what they're really looking at. Lifesmile 28, thanks for joining. Used to pay credit card balance down couple times a month with a score reflection each time. Now it doesn't do it anymore. So yeah, so if you're paying it down, it's not really how many times you pay it down each month. It's what ends up on the bill at the end of the month. So if you're reducing your payment, and some people do, and it can be perfectly reasonable if it works within your budget and your income um, uh, process that you've set for yourself to make multiple payments a month. But Experian doesn't see multiple payments. What comes into a credit report is here's the balance at the end of the month on the billing statement. So that's what's reported to your credit report. When you look at your credit report, you'll most often see the balance that appeared on your last billing statement as the balance on the report. So whether you make one payment, pay it off in full, or pay it down, or make multiple payments during the month to keep that balance low, uh, either way, it's that balance that reflects in the utilization calculations. And so that's what counts at the end of the month. So I don't know if perhaps the payment cycle changed or your use of credit's changed. You're using more lately, which happens. Full disclosure, over the holidays, my scores went down because I traveled and went and visited family, and I used a credit card for security reasons as much as anything. Don't have to carry cash, less risk of fraud, more protection against identity theft, those sorts of things. My balances went up over the holidays. My scores came down. I paid the balance by the end of January. Balance is reported now lower. My scores have come back up. So cycles are important, and how you use that credit over time is important. Scores will go up and down. So it just depends on that system. Well, I got your income tax and just wanted to pay them all off. Not a bad idea. If you can do that, absolutely. I mean, if that makes sense for you, paying off debts is always a good thing. In the end, your scores, be aware of your scores when you pay something off and make a major change. Your scores may dip a bit initially. Don't panic. Wait a couple of months, check again. Usually come right back up because you've done something positive. It also is better just for your physical health. You've reduced your debts. You don't have that stress anymore. Good for you. Anything you can do to reduce your debts, in my experience, for most people, is a positive thing, not just from a credit scoring or reporting standpoint, but from just quality of life and being able to reduce your stress levels. So absolutely, that can be a good plan. So with you there. What do I think about Batman? Which one? I guess is the question. I grew up on the cartoon Batman, so I liked him better, or the late 60s Batman. So sort of the comedy Bam Pow guy. So he was sort of my favorite when I was like 8 years old. Now, it's kind of divided. But again, if you're just joining, thanks for all the great questions. This is a Periscope about credit reporting, credit scoring. Don't know how Batman worked in there, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask. If you're just joining, I'm Rod Griffin, Senior Director, Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. I try to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern to answer your questions about credit reports and credit scores and fraud and ID theft, all of those things that can affect your financial life, and want to answer your questions. Everybody who's been here before has heard me say, I've worked with Experian almost 23 years. In the corporate world, they teach you to do death by PowerPoint. I'm very good at that, but I'd rather not. I'd rather answer the questions you have, because I could talk at you for hours and not answer the questions you need answered. So please feel free to ask. I'll do my very best. Use Experian trial often. Sorry, don't buy the monthly version. No worries. If it's helping, great. That's what it's really there to do. If you're looking at a report, my job isn't to sell you stuff. So I have the best job at Experian. I get to talk to people, help people, get your feedback on what we're doing, and help advise our company and share information. So I do share what you're telling me with our executives, with our product development people, to figure out how we help you get the information you need. So I have the best job in the company. If you're using Experian products and services, fantastic. It helps pay my salary, so I'm happy about that. But at the same time, for me, it's about education. It's about helping you make better decisions. And that's what Experian cares about, is helping people be more financially healthy, be more financially successful. More maybe history you care to know, but Experian was the first and still the only credit reporting company with a dedicated consumer education team, because the company recognized decades ago that the more educated the people we work with are, the better it is for business as well as for you. because you'll make good choices. You'll know how to work with us. It helps us provide better service. It helps you get the credit you need. It helps you work with lenders and others, which is another benefit. They are a customer of ours as well. And so helping our consumer customers connect with our business customers is good for Experian. So the more we can do to help you understand and make knowledgeable decisions, the better it is for us as well. So I'm not here to sell products. I'll make you aware of them, but if you use them, great. So being in new and stumbled upon this, how do I find you again? So Prixie 23, you can learn more at ex.pn/creditchat. As I said, I try to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I work with Experian. And again, ex.pn/creditchat. And we are on Twitter Wednesdays, 2:00 Central, 3 Eastern with a Twitter chat. So I hope to see you there as well and here. Website, you say when a collection will be removed. Don't see it anymore. So a collection is removed 7 years from the original delinquency date of the original debt. So when the original debt first becomes late, 7 years from that date, or approximately that date, the original debt will be deleted, as well as any future or associated collection account. So collections are treated as a continuation of that original debt. So it will come off 7 years from that original delinquency date. So EM_MJ Sharma, why are we so stubborn when we consumers ask for proof when you guys say verified? What we do in a dispute, and our responsibility, we start here, our responsibility is to accurately show what lenders tell us is in their records. The lenders have to tell us to take that information off, and the proof would need to go to them, and they need to show, and they are obligated under federal law to report accurate information. If they are not reporting accurate information, and I've seen instances where we will say they're not reporting to us anymore. But if you disagree with the results of the dispute, you can add what we call a statement of dispute, and you can attach any proof documents you have to your report so that anytime someone gets it, your side of the story appears as well. So we're sharing both sides, and we strongly encourage people to do that. If you disagree with the results of a dispute, you can add that statement of dispute so that it shares your perspective and your explanation as to why you disagree. So you can tell both sides. Anthony's _K9, thanks for joining. Atlantic Inso, thanks for joining. Lento Kozo, thanks for being here. And Card Collector, thanks for joining. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my very best to answer. And glad to see all of you here. Hope you're all having a great day. Have a couple more minutes and be happy to answer any other questions you have. I try to be here, like I said, 30 minutes. Usually end up running a bit long. So, but yeah, I mean, and it's about getting that report and what's in it, and having both sides of that story included is crucial. And so, I talk to people too, and I've, the statement of dispute is really important. There are what we call statements of excuse, kind of tongue in cheek. So we don't encourage those. So for example, I heard from a person once who said they went on vacation to Tahiti, and in their excitement for the vacation forgot to mail their check and wanted to put a statement in the report saying they forgot to mail their check because they went to Tahiti. And it's probably not going to help, because the lender is just going to say, hope you had a great vacation, we still need to be paid on time. So that probably won't help. But if there's a dispute, you disagree and with the results, and you can provide that statement of dispute, strongly encourage that and say, I disagree with the dispute, this is why, or the results of that dispute, this is why. Strongly encourage that. So what's your number one secret to know as a consumer? I think the number one secret that I would share is that there's no secret. I mean, people want to manipulate reports. They want to manipulate scores. They want to know what the big secrets are. There aren't any. You have to pay your bills on time. You have to keep your balances on your credit cards low. And then it's common sense. Don't take on too much debt. Don't apply for credit too often. There's no real secret to the process. You can get your credit report. You'll know exactly what's in it. We send you all of the information we have, including soft inquiries, which lenders don't get. And that's really all there. And your scores will take care of themselves. So take care of your credit report. Take care of the way you manage your debts. your scores will be fine. But knowing your score is helpful if you go to make a purchase, you're planning to make a purchase, use the credit report as a financial tool. So I think that's important. One of the things I tell people, I talked to a reporter this morning, and I said, one of the things that I hear from people that is frustrating for me is that I'll ask them, have you got your report? And their head goes down and they shake their head no. And they say, and I ask, well, why? It's because I don't want to know what's there. You can't do anything about it until you get the report. Know what's there. Be engaged in that process. Fewer than half of people who are entitled to their free annual credit report actually get them. Need to get your report. Know what's in it. And then you can act on it and you can use it as a financial tool. If you own that credit report, own that credit history, you can use it as a financial tool. It'll work for you. And that's what we want to have happen. We want you to be able to walk into a lender and say, I know what my history is. I know where my scores are going to be pretty close to what yours are going to be, and I'll qualify. Let's talk about rates and terms, and we can get where we need to be. Believe it or not, lenders like that because they want you to be able to come in and they want to know you're going to apply and we're going to be able to approve you so we can do business together. That's good for everybody. So that's where we want to get. Payment history is 100%. So yeah, so it may be time. So that's the other issue. If everything's paid on time, and you mentioned you had some medical collections, those sorts of things. So that's going to weigh in a bit, but over time that will change. It will get better. And at 709, your scores are above average. The average credit score is about 706 on FICO scores today. I'll get it wrong, 685 on FICO scores, I think. So you're above average. So that's a good place to start. Been paying bills and keeping utilization to 15% with 4 major, senior score getting better. Yeah, I mean, and that's, it's consistency over time, really important and key. So pay the bills on time, all the time, keep your balances low all the time, and just do it over time. It's really kind of boring. There's nothing exciting. If you're doing boring things with credit, you're probably going to have good scores. If you're doing inventive, creative things, it tends not to work very well. So it's about that consistency and being constant in your behavior with scores, the way you manage them. What's the highest score I've ever seen? It depends on the scoring model. 850 is sort of the rule of thumb with FICO scores, for example. But if you're going to buy a car, there's a FICO auto score that goes to 900. So I've seen scores in the 870s, 880s. On that particular model. There was a score a long time ago that actually went the other way. It went from 1,300 to 0. So the lower the score was better. So you could say the highest score I ever saw was like in the low hundreds. So because on that score, the lower the better. Knowing what the scoring system is and knowing what the scale is important. The goal isn't to get a perfect score. People are always trying to get that perfect score. And that's not really the objective. The idea and the goal is to manage your credit well, do some common sense things, and you'll have scores that are good enough to get the rates you want to get in the best terms. So, that's the key. If you worry about trying to and spend your time trying to get a perfect score, you'll have more gray hair than I do. So, just do common sense things. Can I talk about FICO Auto within other FICO scores? Sure. So within credit scores, there are what we call generic credit scores, which you hear about FICO scores and different versions. Your Vantage score, for example, is a generic score, a company that creates generic scores. Generic scores are used by multiple kinds of lenders. So it could be credit unions, could be banks, for lots of different kinds of lending. So you could use a generic score for auto loans. You could use it for retail loans. You could use it for just personal loans, and they predict risk. But within scoring systems, there are also different scores for specific industries. So an auto score for car buying is designed and developed specifically to predict the likelihood a person will repay an auto loan as agreed. So the scale's a bit different. For an auto score with FICO, they're looking at, will you pay your car loan on time, as opposed to, very specifically, as opposed to, would you just pay general credit on time, or would you pay a mortgage loan on time, or would you pay a credit card on time? So the scale's a bit different. They're looking at the information in your credit report, just like every other score, but they weigh it a bit differently. So they may look at auto loans you've had and give them a bit more weight, for example, because if that's what they're trying to determine. But everything else still is crucial and still gets factored in. It's just how that information is weighed within the score. So if you're going to buy a car, they'll look at an auto score. What I can tell you is if you have good scores on other systems, you're going to have good scores on auto scores or any other score. I've never seen anybody who has a great score with one score have a poor score with another scoring system. It's because they're all looking at the same information. So, but there are scores that are for specific types of lending. So auto loans are one of them. Mortgage lending is another example. So there are mortgage scores. There are credit unions who have scores specific for their customers because their customers have different kinds of credit needs and behaviors as compared to, say, a national bank who might have different kinds of scores. So lots of different scores. You still only have 3 credit reports. And so if you, again, take care of the credit report, you're going to have good credit scores. And because they all use the same information to do the calculation. So thank you all so much for the great questions today. Hope you're all having a great day and getting ready for the weekend. Hope to see you again soon. Again, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Senior Director, Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. I try to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Probably won't make it next Tuesday. I'm going to be out of town and I think on an airplane. So probably won't make it next Tuesday. Plan to be here next Thursday. Join us on Wednesdays on Twitter, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern for our Credit Chat on Twitter. Next week, we're going to talk about common questions around credit. So kind of another version of this conversation. So please join us there. Hope to see you all again soon. Hope you all have a very great day. Take care, everybody.